Everything you thought you knew about Bitcoin can completely change after watching the information in this video. We have a one in a lifetime event coming up for the entire cryptocurrency market that we have never, ever experienced in the history of all crypto. November 5th, we have the presidential elections, and there could be a Bitcoin strategic reserve for the United States coming up in the next 60 to 90 days. We have the biggest events, the biggest volatility. And if you're a trader and you know anything about this market, the time to make money is in volatility. I will be talking about the short term and the long term. Is it bullish? Is it bearish? How to make money on both scenarios and how to protect yourself from losing money in the wild, wild west of finance that is cryptocurrency. If you're watching this video, you are one of the select few that chose to participate in one of the greatest asset classes on the face of the planet to make money. There's nothing like it. You are participating in a revolution. Pat yourself on the back. In 2 months from now, you're going to have your best friends hitting you up like, hey, Alex, how did you do that crypto thing? Hey, bro, what about that crypto Bitcoin thing? Because you took the risk on, you looked at the big monster face to face and participated in this innovative asset class, you are going to win. And so I want to lay out every situation in this video, and I'm going to dive into some very detailed charts. Take notes, do what you have to do, understand it, replicate the charts on your own time. Please do your own research. Please, 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 not just because of legality reasons, but because if you try to make decisions based off people on the internet, you're going to lose all of your money. So please don't do that. Don't be that guy. Let's actually be professionals. Let's actually eat off this market. It's time to eat. I'm trying to eat. Let's jump into the charts. So the chart I'm laying out here is the US Russell 2000 in comparison to the presidential elections. So this to me is assessing risk in the market. The problem with looking at crypto specifically is that we don't have very long price history. Let me show you. So as you can see right here, this is specifically Bitcoin's price. Now the red lines are presidential elections. So as you can see, pretty bullish in this presidential election, pretty bullish here. Now we do have these dips, like this was a dip here. It's considered a dip, okay? 27% dip on Bitcoin's price. And we did also have this major event with COVID. Now, these are before presidential elections. So not on the election day. I think we're past that. As you can see right here, we have this dip right there, specifically 30% drop. But the problem with this data, which I always try to explain to you guys, is that we can only go back to 2010. Look, right here, 2010. We could only go that far back. With the Russell 2000, we can go back way further. We can go all the way back to 1988. It gives us a pretty large data set. Now, all of these red lines are the presidential elections. So a lot of people on the internet are talking about what happens during presidential elections. What happens during presidential elections? Here's one thing I have to make straight to you guys. If Trump gets elected, we are going to fly. And the chances of him getting elected are very high. So number one, I believe for a fact, Trump is going to get elected. I think it's a high probability. I think it's very obvious. And if he does get elected, number two, we are guaranteed for a bull market. Now, if you watch my previous videos, I've done predictions on when I think the altcoin cycle is going to start. Although we're going to be talking about Bitcoin in this video, my goal personally is to make money off of any financial asset class, including, Bitcoin, altcoins. It doesn't matter to me. And altcoins appreciate by much larger percentages than Bitcoin. I believe maybe Bitcoin can get to 150K this cycle max, maybe 100K to 150K. At 60,000, you're not even looking at a double, maybe a little bit over a double. Anywhere from like 70% to 130% is what you're looking at for Bitcoin specifically. My goal is to get 10,000%, 5,000% on altcoins, and then I could sell the altcoins for more Bitcoin, or I could sell it to cash. Either way, this is the new frontier, right? Altcoins give us the big returns. So I definitely look into altcoin cycles to make money. And for my predictions, I believe they're going to be January, February. So presidential elections are when? November 5th. So we have November, December, January, February. Those months, within those months, I believe we are going to have a full-on parabolic bull run for Bitcoin. And then we're also going to have in those 4 months an altcoin cycle initiation. So I don't think the altcoin cycle is going to end in those 4 months. I think it's going to start in one of those 4 months. And obviously November 5th is the presidential election, and I think it's pretty much guaranteed for Trump to win. So let me be very clear. The information I'm going to be providing in this video is quantitative info. It's just simply numbers on charts. Doesn't mean it's definitive, but it does decide my investment decisions. I completely eliminate and remove all emotions from my investments. And from the data I'm going to show you, the prediction that I have is that we are short-term bearish, long-term bullish. And when I mean long-term, I'm thinking within those 4 months. So I'm thinking within the next 30 to 60 days, we are going to have a catastrophic fall in the market. I think it's going to bleed out. I think we're going to have a big event. I can't anticipate what it is. We obviously have Israel and the war tensions increasing substantially in the past couple of days because Iran launched ballistic missiles and they're attacking specifically infrastructure in the energy category. So they're now threatening infrastructure in energy. So if that happens, we know that oil prices has destroyed the market in the past. We know for a fact this is a big event that happened around COVID that destroyed the price of oil, and it also destroyed pretty much every asset class in the world. So if they do, start this all-out war on energy infrastructure, this could be the event that catalyzes us into a steep fall that I'm predicting. This is why I sold all of my cryptocurrency a couple weeks ago. I sold everything, and then my goal is to buy as it drops. So I believe catastrophic event is going to happen in the next 30 to 60 days. And then I think we're going to go into the biggest bull run ever. Guys, think about it from somebody that has $5 billion. They never want to buy high. They're not going to buy high. Look what I'm saying, right? We are out all-time high for the S&P 500 for every stock, pretty much every cryptocurrency. I think the all-time high was like 70K or something like that. We're at 60 something K. We are like basically at the highest prices for all risk on assets. People with billions of dollars are not looking to buy high. They're looking to crash the market and buy as low as possible. And if you understand the information I'll be talking about in this video, they also want interest rates at 0. So they want all risk on assets to be as low as they possibly can, and they want interest rates to be at 0. And then from there, they're going to dump as much money as they possibly can into risk on assets and start us into a major bull cycle. So again, let me be very clear with you guys. Smart money, very wealthy people with hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars, they do not buy high. They buy low and they wait. This is why people like Warren Buffett just sold like a whole bunch of Apple stock and a whole bunch of other, he just sold a monumental amount of stocks, right? This is why people are selling, because they believe that the market's going to crash. And I'm going to be attacking 2 different variables. The first one is the presidential election. So what we're looking at is the Russell 2000. The beauty of the Russell 2000 is that it's the thing that closely simulates the crypto market. Like I showed you, Bitcoin's price is only limited to 2010. For altcoins, it's even more limited. I think it goes back to like 2014. So we pretty much have no data when it comes to risk on and presidential elections. But if we look at the Russell 2000, which is the smallest market cap stocks within specifically the stock market, the 2000 small market cap stocks within the tech industry, right? This gives us our risk assessment for the history and the presidential elections that we are looking for. It's the thing that closely resembles cryptocurrency, basically. It's the closest thing we can find. So right here, as you can see, we have a presidential election. There was a 39% fall. Right here, we have a 13% fall. As you can see here, presidential election, 13% fall. Right here, we have a 16% fall, presidential elections. Here was a very bad event, 47% fall, and it even went past presidential elections. Here, we have a 60% fall, and we have the presidential election, right? Let's keep going. This is a baby fall. We have about 12%, 27%, and all the red lines are the presidential elections. 44%. Now, again, the timing is everything. So some of these are not like really close to the presidential elections, and that's fine, right? But I'm just looking at like what's going on, right? So right here, we have been on an uptrend. I personally believe that risk on assets are going to suffer, and it can be for the presidential election. It could be anything, right? What's happening is Biden is in office, right? And it's pretty much guaranteed that Trump is going to win. Nothing's guaranteed, but there's a high chance that Trump is going to win, right? So the Biden administration are doing anything in their power to essentially influence policy and kind of make their last final adjustments before Trump becomes president. So dramatic action is being taken. We see this in Israel specifically right now. Is like all out efforts to make some type of catastrophic change to the war before Trump comes into office, because he might not be so accommodating to Israel, right? We see people essentially adjusting everything they can before Trump comes into office. This is why we saw the U.S. dock workers strike specifically timed, right? The timing. Now, obviously, they made an agreement and they pushed it back to January, but that agreement wouldn't have been made if the dock workers didn't time it so perfectly. They knew that presidential elections was coming. They knew that Biden couldn't do anything dramatic. And if they put the pressure on, they were going to have to make a deal. And they did make a deal till January. Basically, when there's a big change in office, everybody starts making things happen. Things start happening very rapidly. And so obviously we have less than 30 days to the presidential election. And I think it's very volatile. I don't think it's a good time to hold cryptocurrency specifically right now. That's my personal opinion. And this data right here backs that specific information up. As you can see, risk on assets tend to suffer. But if you look at crypto specifically in the last 3 presidential elections, obviously crypto did pretty good. If we bring open the chart one more time, not without a fall beforehand. Like we did have, like this looked pretty good. This was pretty sideways. This was pretty good. I mean, you could call this a fall. This is a fall, right? This is a 28% drop. You can see we had, COVID tanking the price of crypto a lot around this time period. So again, nobody knows for sure, but the data suggests that we will have a pretty big fall. And the thing that I think is even bigger, like way bigger than the presidential elections, is, in my personal opinion, the federal funds rate and the Federal Reserve. So there's something called interest rates for new people that don't understand. Interest rates are basically the amount it costs for one bank to lend to another bank. So for example, if I'm Bank A and I want to loan money to Bank B, I could charge them 5% a year, or whatever the case is. I don't know if you guys knew this, but the Federal Reserve gets to decide that number, right? So obviously recently they've dropped the federal funds rate by 50 basis points. This happened less than a month ago, September 18th specifically. So this to me is one of the most significant events in like financial history. When I said one in a lifetime event, I meant it. This is huge, right? Now, the general market, if you look at mainstream, what they'll say is, hey, they dropped interest rates, meaning it's cheaper to borrow capital, which makes sense. This makes sense, right? This is very smart. There's more liquidity in the market. This leads to people making investment decisions, and the market goes up because people start buying risk on assets. This is what a lot of people have been saying. Now, I've been saying this is true, but it's all about timing. This does not happen instantly. Also, people tend to borrow more when interest rates are at 0. At 0% is when people tend to borrow more. That is what I've shown time and time again. And I'm going to prove that in this chart right here. This pretty much trumps every bull in the market. And I am a bull long term. I just really believe that there's going to be a dramatic fall. I don't know how. Nobody knows how. But if you look right here, this pink line is the federal funds rate. So this is them dropping interest rates. Now, what I look at is momentum. I'm not looking for increased drops, because that doesn't really happen. The Federal Reserve doesn't do that. Once they change momentum, it's typically a long period of time before they change back. So they've changed momentum in the sense that they decrease interest rates. They should be decreasing it over a longer period of time. Now, there's an FOMC meeting. This is where they decide interest rate policy on the 6th and the 7th. The 7th is when they'll actually release the data on if they're going to continue to decrease interest rates like they just started. The momentum started September 18th. When they did this, it flipped everything on its head, and then now they're going down with interest rate policy. So on the 18th, they're going to basically make the decision if they're going to cut it 25 basis points, 75 basis points. There are some people calling for 75 basis points, 50 basis points. I mean, we don't know exactly how aggressive they're going to get. We just know it's going to happen. And there's something that's very interesting that a lot of people are not talking about. I don't know if you guys knew this, but on September 16th, before they cut interest rates on September 18th, so 2 days before, we had the United States Senate putting out this message calling for a 75 basis point cut. What does the Senate see that we don't see? Right here, you could say, we write today to urge the Federal Reserve to cut the federal funds rate, currently at a 2-decade high of 5.3%, by 75 basis points. So Jerome Powell cut it by 50 basis points. That's what Jerome Powell did, right? But the Senate was urging Jerome Powell. It was like, hey, you have to cut interest rates. And they're not just like, hey, cut interest rates. They're like, cut it by 75 basis points. This is aggressive, guys. This is like, what is going on? You have to ask the question, what is going on? Why are they cutting interest rates so aggressively? What's the reason for that? And if you study the Federal Reserve, the whole point of it, it's supposed to be the bank that saves all the banks. It's considered the lender of last resort. You can Google that. If you just Google the lender of last resort, the Federal Reserve will come up. The whole point of the Federal Reserve is to bail banks out. It's for emergency situations. So when you have the Senate coming out like, hey, bro, cut it by 75. Please, cut it by 75. We urge you. Then Jerome Powell comes out with a 50 basis point cut, which is very extreme. That's huge. They could have did a 25 basis point, which is what they usually do. But they did a 50 basis point. Just think about that for a second, right? They could have done something less aggressive, but they decided to get very aggressive, right? And then we have another FOMC meeting coming up again 2 days after the president is selected. I think this is crazy. I think volatility is about to be insane. And if you look at the chart that I have here, you can see that every time they change momentum, it usually leads to some type of market correction. For example, if we look right here, we have them changing momentum and the Russell 2000 dropped 29%. I mean, we can continue to go. Look right here. I've isolated the white lines. Look at the white lines. We have this monumental correction, right? Big correction, 40% down, right? Let's keep going. Right here. Big correction down. So every time they change momentum, this pink line is the federal funds rate. So when they cut, this is like the line dropping down. The line dropping down is when they cut. The line dropping down is when they cut. The line dropping down is when they cut. Look right here. This could have predicted COVID. I always talk about this. Big drop down. That's a 43% drop. So we just cut interest rates. Now, what's interesting about this, which you have to pay attention to, is we looked at the federal funds rate in comparison to the presidential elections. There's a presidential election every 4 years, but guess what? The Federal Reserve doesn't change momentum every 4 years. We have isolated scenarios where we have a presidential election and the momentum changing. Though that's the sweet spot. That is what I believe is going to cause the dramatic fall. Let me show you what I'm saying. Let's look at the first isolated situation when the federal funds rate decreased right here, which is very similar to what we're currently experiencing. Look at the date. This is June 1989. If we pull open the presidential election chart, let's go to June 1989. That's right about here. So in this case, we didn't really have a presidential election. That's right here. We didn't have a presidential election, but the market still fell. So in this case, you know, it just kind of shows that the federal funds rate determines the market more than the presidential election. But I want to look for situations where we did have a presidential election and the federal funds rate changed momentum, which is what we're experiencing right now. We have the presidential election and they just changed momentum in September, right? They're dropping interest rates. It's all about momentum. Pay attention. So right here we have February 2001. Let's go look at that really quickly. Let's look at February right here. So we did have a presidential election, and then right after they cut interest rates. So literally right here, February 2001. This closely resembles what we're going through right now. We have a presidential election and they cut interest rates momentum. The momentum. Now, let me be very clear with you guys. It's not just about cutting interest rates. This entire time they were cutting interest rates. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a long period of increased interest rates, as you can see here, and then they change momentum. This point, that white line is the point I'm really looking for. So in this case, they had the presidential election, and then a couple weeks later, they changed momentum. This is a change in momentum right there. Change in momentum. That's what I'm looking for. Now, if we come over here, we have August 2007. We see a big change in momentum. Let's go over here to presidential elections. Let's look at August right here. This is August 2007. So this is actually when the exact market start, like the top. This is when we started experiencing the fall. And then right here we have the federal funds rate. So this, again, closely mirrors what we're going through right now. We have a change of momentum in the federal funds rate. We have a presidential election. The market fell. Let's look at the last one, which is what we have here specifically. This is July 2019. Let's go look at this presidential election chart. This is July 2019. So again, the same scenario. We have a presidential election coming up. I wouldn't say that soon, but it was coming up. And then we have a change of momentum in the federal funds rate. So I think personally, guys, unbiasedly, let go of the attachment of money, let go of the attachment of cryptocurrency, get out of tribalism for a second, right? Don't just listen to what your tribe is saying. They're pretty much probably all saying it's bull run, bull run, bull run, right? Take a step back for a second. There's three big scenarios, right? Number one, we have a lot of uncertainty with the presidential election. We don't really know what's going to go on. And we have all of the pressures that come with the pre-presidential election from the Biden administration and all of the people in office. They're like, yo, Trump is about to like rip us apart. Like we have to do whatever we can to get our foothold in, to make our policies stick. They're doing whatever they can. We have the war escalating, guys. When I mean escalating, Iran just sent 20 ballistic missiles and they hit Israel. And specifically, Israel basically made a vow to hit them back. Do I think it's going to happen before the presidential election? Most likely, yes. Now, Biden is basically like, don't hit them back, Israel, do not do it. But Trump is kind of advocating for them to hit back. So it's like, just look at what's going on. If they hit back, there's been threats made that they'll be attacking energy infrastructure. So energy infrastructure is under the crosshairs. This could lead to oil prices getting severely damaged, and volatility from oil prices moves the entire world. So that's, when I mean volatility, I mean there's a high risk scenario here, right? Very high risk, right? Pay attention to what I'm saying. Then we have the federal funds rate, which is 100% accurate. Every time we change momentum and you start decreasing interest rates, 100% of the time we experience a fall. If you look at specific situations where we had a presidential election and them decreasing interest rates, every single time the market fell 100% of the time. Personally, from the quantitative data that I'm looking at, I don't think there's any way to argue this at all. I think there's a lot of random arguments of people just kind of like emotionally throwing things. Like I've seen it. I watched the comment section. Again, like it doesn't really hold merit. You have to prove what you're saying. It cannot come from feelings, right? So this is not coming from feelings. I much rather hold crypto. I much rather just sit there and like do nothing and watch my money to go up and not sell and not do any of this like at all. But the data is saying otherwise. And I'm going to continue to move on that data because that has made me money over the past 8 years of being involved with this market. Data makes me the most money. Unbiasedly, unemotionally, even if I'm wrong, acting on what the data says is how I've won in the past, how I've made millions of dollars, and how I'm currently financially independent. Right now, I'm in Atlanta. I'm based out of Orlando, Florida, and there was a hurricane, and I have enough financial stability to take my entire family, my entire business to a random Airbnb in Atlanta because, and I've never been to Atlanta. It's great out here. It's like a little mini vacation, and I can make videos from anywhere. That's what financial independence allows you to do. So again, if you want to be emotional, that's for different types of investors. I am not that type of investor. I move off the facts and I move off the data. And I haven't really seen anyone, when I mean anyone, I mean anyone. Like anyone, I have group of traders. You guys can get access to my private group if you want. The link is in the bio. Very smart people. I haven't seen anything, like literally zero, of real data and real evidence pointing to a bull cycle completely without something happening. I think right now the overarching problem is the Federal Reserve and macroeconomic conditions. For crypto, we're super bullish. The crypto side, I mean, super bullish. It's kind of like layers. This is what people don't understand. It's kind of like layers. The biggest layer and the most important layer is the Federal Reserve. Under that, it's the Bitcoin halving cycle. Under that is the altcoin cycle. If the Federal Reserve doesn't work, these two will not work. I promise you, crypto is not isolated from the entire world's macroeconomic condition. I promise you. Cryptocurrency is only worth like $1 or $2 trillion. The stock market alone is 100 trillion. 100 trillion. And the Federal Reserve eliminates the stock market. Trust me, it moves the entire stock market. So crypto is not there yet. I know a lot of people are saying it. I don't know why they're saying it. It makes no sense because crypto is only $2 trillion in liquidity. Once crypto is like maybe 100, 200 trillion, this makes sense. Maybe it will be isolated from what the Federal Reserve is doing when it's that big, but it's not big. It's only $2 trillion. The entire stock market is 100 trillion, 200 trillion, and that's just in the United States. That's only in the United States. So if the Federal Reserve takes down the market, if stocks fall, then cryptocurrency will fall closely after. And there's nothing stopping that. Now, if the Federal Reserve gets through that fall, and this is the main point I want to explain in this video that a lot of people are not comprehending. I want the fall to happen. You should want the fall to happen. Why? Because every time we have these big, big falls, we experience the all-out bull markets, guys. Listen to what I'm saying. We need these big resets for us to go and fly into new numbers. The big, big wealthy people, they reset the market every so often. I mean, you guys can look at it for yourself, but every single time, right? Let's go to the federal funds rate, right? We have these big falls. We experience, look, monumental bull run. That's a 1,587-day bull run. That's huge. Look at this bull run. That's 3,443-day bull run. When I mean extended periods of time, we have big extended periods of time once we experience these big resets. Let's look at this one. We had a big reset here. That is a 3,439-day bull run. You want these big resets. You want it to basically reset. You want the interest rates to go to zero. This is where zero is right now, because when interest rates are at zero, that's when the real borrowing starts happening. They only cut interest rates by 0.5 basis points. Is that going to change your decision to go buy a house? Like, think about it now in that perspective, right? As an investor, if you wanted to buy a house and you had to spend $500,000 or $250,000 right now to buy a house, right? And you have to put your credit on the line and you'll get all this debt and all of this headache, right? And you wanted to buy a house. When are you going to buy it? When interest rates only dropped a 0.5 percentage point? Think about that for a second. Versus you buying it when interest rates are at zero. You're going to want to buy it when interest rates are at zero. And so is every other wealthy person. They want these scenarios right here. All the rich dogs, they want this. The big boys with way more money than us, they specifically want interest rates to be at zero, and they want asset prices to be cheap. And this is why we see the bottoms right every single time. Interest rates zero, asset prices cheap. Look, interest rates close to zero, asset prices cheap. Here, we didn't even have interest rates at zero, which different time, different world. But every time we had 0% interest, oh man, the market just went insane. Like every single time. Interest rates zero, assets cheap. That's what they want. That's what the big whales do, because them buying $1 billion worth of stock, they can't do that at the top. If they did that at the top, the entire market will go into a full-on bull run, and as they buy, they will essentially lose value of their purchase. If you put $1 billion into stocks, when you buy, you are literally pumping the price of stocks. Think about that for a second. This is what you call slippage. Understand liquidity dynamics, one of the most important topics of my entire existence. Once I really started to study liquidity and asset markets, oh man, the entire game changed for me. If there's one thing you could take from this video, ignore everything I'm saying. Just understand liquidity, because as you buy an asset, the price will increase if you have substantial amounts of money. So what they want to do is they want to drive the price down and buy as the price is plummeting, so that when they do buy, they get a better and better price as they buy. They're not going to buy at all-time high, because they buy on all-time high, the price is going to skyrocket, and they're going to buy the assets for more expensive than they originally intended to buy it. They want to dump the market, then they drop their billions, then we go into a huge full bull cycle. That's my official thoughts, is where you're going to have a short-term catastrophic fall within the next 30 to 60 days, and then it's going to follow with an immediate all-out crazy altcoin cycle. The greatest time to be alive in cryptocurrency. There's going to be a major wealth transfer, and people are going to get rich off of crypto, but it's not going to come without a fight. And this doesn't mean you have to sell your crypto. You can do whatever you want. You could even hold the dips. It doesn't matter. If you hold the dips, market comes back, doesn't matter. But that's not what I do, because as a professional trader, this is what I have to do. I look at the data and I make decisions. Thank you for watching this video. We're going to be coming out with more altcoin predictions in future videos. I will catch you guys later. Peace out. If you like the quality of this content, hit like. If you don't, leave some constructive criticism. Subscribe for more video updates. And like I always say, if you don't get with it, you will get left behind. Catch you guys later. Peace out.